Hi, I'm Ed.
I'm Dan.
Welcome. Oh, sorry. I forgot about our third guest. We forget about
he's
our
right
guests.
there at the Tiki Hut.
Hey, this is Ren. This is Ren joining us for another episode of Unsolicited. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate
Thank you, Ren, for joining us yet again.
Thank everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank the Work Release Program.
I hope you're enjoying our theme song. Let's thank Grumbles. Let's thank Grumbles for writing our theme song.
Makes everything seem bona fide.
It really goes away. So, what are we doing? Do we have? Does anybody have a something to read? I've got.
I do have an old Ann Landers. I have another one.
It's either Ren or me. I think at this point.
Yeah, Ren, you got something?
I don't have anything. I don't know where you find these.
I got one.
Okay.
Help! This is Dear Prudence. I tend to like her advice. Help! My therapist told my husband to lie to me about his infidelity. Okay.
My therapist told my husband to lie
to me about his infidelity. Yeah, obviously didn't take the advice. I don't know. Anyway, my therapist. Their
therapist told their husband not to lie. What? Okay.
I'm going to start with bad advice. I haven't even read the question yet. I'm going to say, have sex with a therapist. You should absolutely have sex with that therapist. Okay, let's get done. My therapist knew my husband cheated on me and shamed me for thinking so. My husband, Barry, and I have been married for 23 years. We have 4 children. I thought we were happy until about a year ago, Barry began picking fights with me. I finally convinced him to join me in marriage counseling. We saw Dr. Mary individually and as a couple. Slowly, Barry admitted that he'd like to open our marriage. Dr. Mary was supportive of this and encouraged me to open my heart to the possibility. And as Barry and I began communicating more healthfully, I warmed to the idea. Then I discovered evidence that Barry had started cheating on me around the same time that he started picking fights. When I confronted him, he told me everything, that he tried to find faults in our marriage to justify cheating, and even more shocking, that Dr. Mary knew about his infidelity. She told him to keep his affairs a secret, explaining that it could destroy our marriage if I found out. I am shaken to my core. For that, I'm going to read that again. I am shaken to my core. For the sake of our children and the preceding 22 good years, I want to make things work with Barry, but I'm furious with Dr. Mary. When I confessed that I thought Barry could be cheating, she discouraged me from mistrusting him. I was vulnerable to her and paid her to help my marriage, and she recommended non-monogamy, knowing we'd start off on a bad foot. Sex-positive therapists are difficult to find, but her behavior seems highly unprofessional to me. Should I bother relaying that to her and possibly to the board of licenses her, or the board that licenses her, or am I misdirecting my anger?
Yes. Misdirected.
Wow. That's so.
Okay.
Huh.
Should I report her to the board? Should I talk to her about it and be like, hey, this is bullshit? I do think it's bullshit. Right? Like, if you're a marriage, sex positive, whatever, honesty is pretty important in any relationship.
Yeah.
Even the relationship that we have, honesty is important. But if we were having sex with one another, this took a weird turn. I think that it's a 5. It's fine. It's a fine question.
It's a fine question, but
too long. It's too long.
But she thinks she's going to get a better response from an advice columnist than from going to therapy. Like no, I'm not going to go find a different.
Yeah, and it's weird that she's asking a question about should I report the therapist?
Yeah, that's destroying someone's livelihood.
Like what? And the question itself is pretty poor. I think it's like a 4.
Dan?
I'll agree with Ren. I'll say 4 too.
4, and a 5.
All right.
So the question is this long rant about like, look, I'm right about this whole thing that I just ranted at you about. But then also, what about this peripheral dumb like detail? What should I do about that? Like what? What is that?
You know what? After listening to you and Dan, I want to change my 5 to 3.
God dang.
Okay. I'm just changing. Hey, we got no rules. We got no rules in this show. I'm changing it to a 3. Screw it. All right, let's do the answer. I think you could certainly direct some more of your anger at Barry. I think Barry's the husband. That doesn't mean you have to leave him, but you've already decided that you have to make it work with Barry because of the children and your previously happy marriage. I think you'd be tempted to make Dr. Mary a scapegoat. What she did was unkind and baffling. It's one thing not to reveal a confidence that Barry shared with her in your joint sessions, but it's quite another to encourage him to lie about his infidelity while also supporting the prospect of an open marriage. It's certainly worth checking with her governing board to see if this violates her professional code of ethics. You have every right to be upset that she encouraged your husband to lie and manipulate you. But your husband is the one who lied to and manipulated you. Your husband is the one who started having affairs, then started picking fights with you in order to distract himself from his guilt over his affairs, then lied to you in therapy, then tried to convince you that what you two really needed was an open marriage. You were vulnerable to him, and he recommended non-monogamy despite knowing you'd start off on the wrong foot. So don't let your anger flame out on Dr. Mary so that your husband can go back to being the good guy. There are serious problems in your marriage, and your husband has seriously abused your faith in him. Those 22 years may have been good together, but his behavior over the past year wasn't simply a one-time lapse of character. It was ongoing, concerted, and profoundly unloving. I wish you all the best in finding a therapist you can trust, whose primary goal is helping you figure out what you want and need and not helping your husband lie to you.
Wow.
Solid, man.
That's like a Showtime extended miniseries right there.
That's a 1 easily for me.
What? Oh, that's a 1? I think that's good advice. What's wrong? I want to hear your thoughts.
And the whole thing's wrong because the answer is the same style as the question too. This big rambling like diatribe about the totally unrelated like shit, and then get going on and like agree, because I don't agree with the person they're asking question anyway in the first place. I'm like, they're saying that their partner like decided they're having problems in their marriage, so then they go to therapy together, and then they talk about opening up the relationship. She doesn't want to, and it still isn't working out. So then eventually dude decides like, oh, I'm gonna go fuck with somebody anyway. So he does, and then he probably goes back to the therapist, and the therapist says like, well, what you did this thing, is it, what's gonna happen? Do you want to tell your wife about it or what? And like, a therapist wouldn't say you should go do this. A therapist would only ask questions and say like, okay, so what do you think you should do? He's like, I don't know, I should tell her, but what? Well, what'll happen then if you tell her? And he's like, well, our marriage would end, which is true. And he's like, well, then you can choose if you want to tell your wife or not, and decide what the consequences will be like. Is that a serious enough relationship anyway with the other person? He's probably like, well, I don't know, but like, yeah, it will. So what you're saying is I shouldn't tell her, and he's saying, no, I'm not saying anything. But therapists would be like, no, I'm not saying shit, but you can choose to. But she's obviously the person is mad about the whole thing, about her marriage being fucked up. So she's decided that the therapist was in on it and all this shit, and like, well, this is bullshit, man. It's like this is a bunch of made up shit.
So first off, the question and the answer are way too long, but I'm also going to go out and say Ren's critique is way too long.
Yeah, I matched them, I guess.
Tighten it up, man. Jesus. I think you're right. I think you have some valid points. I'm still giving it solid advice. I think it's solid advice. I mean, she does answer the question. Like, yes, you can check with the board, but focus on your husband. Like, yeah. I'm gonna go with an 8. I'm gonna go with an 8. I think this is pretty decent.
I was closer to Red side. I'm gonna give it a 6. It was just too long.
We are split.
Yeah. But well, I do have some bad advice ready.
Let's hear it. I already gave my bad advice at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, you kind of won that immediately. That is the good. That's bad advice.
Go ahead, Dan. Advice right
have sex with a therapist.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was pretty much.
I'm sticking with it.
All right, so
I thought that would have already happened in the reading of the question the first time. Yeah, I thought it was already like.
Mine is not only should she try to get this therapist disbarred or whatever, fired, she should continue and like just destroy this person's life. If she's got a marriage, break up the marriage. If she's got kids, get the kids that hate the mom. you know.
Yeah, maybe just get them go to DCFS, man. Get them out of there.
Something like that, you know. Just bury this person, you know. Just make their life. Don't work on yourself at all. You're fine. It's this therapist's fault. Yeah. They need to go down.
That's solidly bad advice, Dan. Nice work. Well done.
Thank you.
Ren, what's your bad advice?
Even in the last episode that I was on, I had this last second epiphany before right when we ended that the answer to this and that last one and everyone I've been on could be optionally to put the kids up for adoption. Like that could be like an out for anything with kids almost, depending on.
Put the kids up.
It almost sounds like you're teetering on another rule that we can't just like abandon children as bad advice.
But yeah, you're the only.
I just wanted them to do it, I guess. So yeah, maybe that's too easy of an out.
All right, so, hey, we're not gonna block your creativity.
Get rid of the kids somehow.
Yeah, just get rid of those kids.
Give them to your parents or something. Say that you guys are like, say you have a drug addiction or something. Give them to your parents.
Is that your advice, Ren? Say that you have a drug addiction and give the kids to your parents.
I don't know.
Really bad.
Mom, I got a drug addiction. You're taking the kids.
You know, your mom would end up in an open relationship with your husband is what would happen.
That's true. Okay.
Okay, so I like all these. I think this is all bad advice.
I like that you already had your bad advice before we even read anything.
It was great.
I like that. I think you get extra points for that.
Inspired moment for quickness. Like, I know what's going to be bad to have sex with that therapist. I gotta say,
I do enjoy mine as far as continuing on to destroy the therapist's life.
Yeah, it's very petty, vindictive. Ren's is good, but he always gets rid of children, so I mean, he loses points for that. You know, you can't just go get rid of the children every time. And his 12 minutes. His 12-minute diatribe about how the question and the answer are too long was a bit hypocritical.
That is true.
Okay, I win. I get my tofu dinner. All right. Well, thank you all for. I got to say that in the subtext, I also think the therapist is quite sexy. I think it's a hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of. I don't think an ugly therapist would
like one of those Ally McBeal skirts.
Ally McBeal, Jesus Christ!
She wore the short skirts. You know.
What? You need to refresh those references, Dan. I mean, like, but Ally McBeal.